I got an interesting quote of the day from my lawyer. It says, dance like no one is watching, but text and email like it will be read in court one day. So, wise advice.
Happy Friday.
We'll be starting here in a minute. If everybody would please put themselves on mute. Mute. Okay. 9 o'clock, the witching hour of the day. So if we'd all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Senator Eckhart, would you be so kind as to lead us in prayer?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. And to everybody, good morning. And just remember, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it as we go about our deliberations. So pray with me. Our Father, we are so thankful that you've given us another day to do your work, to build relationships and to do the work of the people, of citizens of the Eastern Shore and of Maryland. Thank you for safety through our challenging time, both not only with the pandemic, but also with the ups and downs of the weather and the challenges that we face. We know that you are in everything, that you have absolute control, and that we are here to do our part to be able to carry out your mission in the world. So be with us. We thank you again for everybody who has participated today, that our audience grows because we address those issues that are near and dear and needs a little bit of troubleshooting. So be with us in our deliberation, and we give you all the glory and the honor in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our meeting on January 21st here. We do have a slight revision in the calendar here for us, and it's due to some issues we've been seeing with EZPass. So at 10:15, we're going to have the Maryland Transportation Authority. We're going to have a representative there to talk about and discuss some of the issues we're all getting flooded with regarding EZPass. But that will be at the end of the meeting. So the meeting may be a little bit longer than expected because of that, but I think it's an important thing that we need to get some resolve on. So that being said, I think first up, we have the Honorary Joseph Bartenfelder, Secretary of Ag. Secretary, are you ready?
We are here.
Yep, give us just 1 second.
You can take 2 seconds. Good morning, sir.
Morning, how y'all doing?
Doing great. We're ready when you are.
Thanks. Well, good morning, everybody. And again, we're kind of meeting virtually, but it's still good to get together with everybody. And I'm going to start with some important staffing updates on our end. You might have already heard we had a change in Deputy Secretary here at MDA. Julie Oberg left, but we replaced her with Steve Conley, who's a veteran here at the Department of Agriculture, resident of Cecil County. And Steve has served as our Assistant Secretary for Marketing, Animal Industries, and Consumer Services. And just glad that he's going to be continuing to work with him in his new role. As Steve moves to Deputy Secretary, his former Assistant Secretary position will be filled with Cassie Shirk. And I know you all know her real well. So in addition to her current roles as a legislative director, she'll share those with Steve as well as working in her new position. In her new position, Cassie will oversee our seafood marketing program, which I know is a shared priority with all of us in this room. And just last weekend, the program participated in the East Coast Commercial Fishermen's and Aquaculture Show in Ocean City. Maryland's Best Seafood had an exhibit booth at the show where we offered samples of blue catfish and worked to connect watermen with buyers. Our program manager, Stone Slate, also gave a presentation at the Maryland Watermen's Association's annual meeting that provided an overview of the program's 2021 activities and its plans for 2022. Labor shortages continue to impact all industries. The seafood industry has struggled, as we all know, for years to secure enough temporary workers for seafood processing.
It's coming from my.
Last week, Governor Hogan signed onto a letter with his
You didn't get your
counterparts
earbuds to work?
in Utah,
They're working with
Colorado,
this.
Guam,
Oh, good.
Hawaii, Maine, Massachusetts, and Vermont, urging President Biden to expand the administration's focus on temporary workers to include a broader range of skills and industries. Poultry is another industry critical to the shore and to Maryland, and we're closely monitoring recent developments around USDA APHIS confirming high-path avian influenza in wild birds in South Carolina and North Carolina. It's not an immediate concern to Maryland poultry farmers at this time, but it does confirm the presence of HPI in the Atlantic Flyway, as many wild waterfowl are migrating. These findings are a stark reminder to all bird owners to enhance biosecurity on poultry premises and remain vigilant in protecting the flocks. Our department has put out a press release and sent messaging to registered backyard flocks, urging them to enhance biosecurity practices. We'll continue to work closely with our federal and industry partners to monitor the situation. Yesterday, we announced an expanded quarantine zone for spotted lanternfly that encompasses most of the state's northern and central jurisdictions, but also includes Cecil and Kent counties. And Cecil County, as I'm sure most of you know, was included in the original order and was the first area in the state to have the confirmed populations of the spotted lanternfly. The quarantine order restricts movement of registered articles that might contain spotted lanternfly in any of its life stages. Businesses, municipalities, and government agencies that require the movement of any regulated item within or from the quarantine zone must have a permit, which can be obtained through a free online training course. This invasive insect originally emerged in Berks County, Pennsylvania, and has since spread to Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, Jersey, New York, Ohio, Virginia, and West Virginia. There are no known threats to human or animal health, but spotted lanternfly is incredibly destructive to a variety of crops and plants, including grapes, hops, apples, peaches, oak, and pine. So with that, I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. And again, I enjoyed giving the presentation, but look forward to seeing you all in person. At this time, I'm going to move, and we're actually had to move where we were going to be sitting side by side in our executive conference room, but because of our modern IT facilities out here at MDA, we had to move into Cassie Shirk's office. So now we have to play musical chairs so I can introduce our legislative director and new assistant secretary for animal health and marketing, Cassie Shirk, so she can sit down and talk a little bit about our legislative agenda.
Good morning, everybody. The department has one departmental bill this year, and it's to extend the sunset date on our spay and neuter program, which is set to sunset on September 30th of this year. And so it extends the sunset date for another 10 years. It's an incredibly important program that we offer, very successful The program is supported by all of our animal advocates, and we had our bill hearing in the Senate EHE committee this Tuesday. And there's also a similar bill on the House side, and the bills basically will be cross-file companion bills, and so we hope to see both of them pass at the end of the session so we can continue on with this program. And the secretary and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And we also have Steve Connolly on the line too, so if you have any questions for Steve, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer those as well.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. I think I see a hand raised out there. It's Delegate Jay Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to a beautiful Friday morning, January 21st to all. So I want to talk a little, first of all, I was at the show last weekend and sampled some of the Blue Cat corn chowder, and it was excellent. So I know that everyone I talked with down there really enjoyed the corn chowder, the Blue Cat corn chowder that they were preparing at the show. And I did see quite a few people at that booth, so I'm glad to see you were there and still constantly promoting this most invasive species. I wanted to talk about the lanternfly a little bit. I know that it seems to be proliferating up in Cecil County pretty heavily. We've been giving them I told you so since they first showed up in Pennsylvania. But last summer, I got calls from a lot of people that were just across the line in Delaware, where the Home Depot is. It's, literally just across the line in Delaware. And they were saying if you come out of the store, they were like, you'd have to almost beat the lanternflies off your vehicle. Is there any collaboration between the two states with this lanternfly issue? It seems to be really predominant right there on that Cecil Delaware line. I'm just wondering if you're working with Delaware as well to help combat this problem.
Well, yeah, Secretary Scoose is well aware of the situation, and it's concentrated up there in that Maryland, Delaware, as you said, and Pennsylvania area. That's kind of the hotbed. And I can get back to you with exactly what steps they're taking, but we have meetings where we all get together and talk about shared interest, and that is one of them.
Yeah, I just want to make sure Delaware's putting the same effort in that we are, because the lanternfly don't know where the boundaries are. They just like it up there for some reason. I don't know. I think it's those donuts up in Cecil County. But the other thing, Mr. Secretary, I know we've talked with some of the poultry companies about this labor shortage. Is that improving with processing of these poultry companies?
Well, when we were working with them very closely during the pandemic, and that's one of the reasons we worked along with the health department to get testing sites set up so that workers felt safe, going to work. That was one of the biggest problems. And I think that has eased up somewhat. I'm not hearing about any problems that they're having now. So I'm thinking that it's subsided.
I appreciate the update. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from the group? If Steve would like to take a moment and introduce himself in his new position, that would be a great idea. Is he available?
Yes, he is.
Would he like to do that? It's up to him.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Steve Conley here. I'm a resident of Cecil County, lifelong, in the Rising Sun area. And Delegate Jacobs, I've killed probably 10,000 spotted lanternflies at my home over the last fall, summer and fall. There's I'm at war with them. They're really bad. They're a real nuisance. Not only are they really damaging to, our farmers' crops, but for homeowners, they excrete a thing called honeydew, which you can guess what that is. But it then breeds a fungus, a mildew, and it turns everything black or dark gray. And even if you go out into the woods, any tree that has an infestation with the spotted lanternfly, the ground's bare below it because of the sooty mildew gets on the plants in the undergrowth and it kills it. So it's bad news. Anyhow, I'm excited in my new role. I have a passion for agriculture. I've been in it all my life, and I'm glad to be part of the team at MDA to try to do good things for our farmers.
Well, we're happy to have you there. Thanks. It's always been a pleasure working with you. Delegate Jacobs, did you have another question? I saw you raise your hand.
I did real quickly. I wanted to ask Deputy Secretary if there was any way possible he could give a quick briefing to E&T committee about just the sheer number of lanternflies and the real problem you're having up there, because I don't think they're aware of just how quickly these things have multiplied.
I mean, 2 years ago we didn't have any. This year they're just everywhere. They've moved down from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and they're on the march. I think that's why the quarantine was extended to 9 more counties, because they found breeding populations in those other counties. Be glad to brief anybody, because it is problematic.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Secretary, have we wrapped it up?
Is there any other questions?
I'm showing none at this point, Joe, but I do appreciate the time. We appreciate you, like always, coming in and giving us an update.
It's always great to be with all of you.
All right, well, take care. We'll talk to you in a bit. Is Secretary Hadaway possibly, we were a little early for her. Is she available?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we would be happy to go ahead with our presentation.
We would be happy to have you start. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the delegation, for the opportunity to visit with you this morning and provide an update on some of the work that we have underway at the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. As you all know, we have many important industries in the state of Maryland and on the Eastern Shore, but in particular, agriculture, seafood, forestry, and our outdoor recreation and tourism industries are so important. So we wanted to take a moment to focus on that today. As Secretary Bartenfelder alluded to earlier, we continue to partner with the Maryland Department of Agriculture on ways that we can assist farmers in meeting their Chesapeake Bay goals, and also partnering with the Department of Agriculture on seafood marketing. I also wanted to just provide an update of our activities related to the seafood industry. As you know, many of the industry members were impacted by the pandemic. And in the vein of recovery, we were able to assist over 1,000 eligible entities in that industry with over $6 million in relief funding through the CARES Act. We also worked with partners on a program for the aquaculture industry to assist them at the same time. There is some additional funding that came to us through that program that will be used to develop more resilient markets and marketing strategies that will strengthen the industry. So we continue to work with stakeholders in the industry to develop those ideas, and working with our federal partners to get approval to move forward with that. But we will gladly keep everyone posted as that progresses. In terms of forestry, I think the last time we appeared before the delegation, we spoke about a grant that Maryland received from the U.S. Department of Commerce to put together an economic adjustment strategy for our forestry industry. I wanted to just let you know today that that EAS plan has been finalized, and we're now moving into the implementation phase. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our tri-county councils across the state, as well as Western Maryland RCND. They were absolutely leaders in this effort and helped get all of the stakeholders together. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that EAS report, I encourage you to do so and look at the really strong recommendations that came out of that. In September, the governor and our department announced the creation of an outdoor recreation office within the Department of Natural Resources. And we also announced Daryl Anthony as the executive director of that office. So he hit the ground running, and we have been really focused on outdoor recreation as both an economic opportunity for our state, but also just a great opportunity for our citizens to get outside and enjoy our natural resources. Of course, we have had many world-class events across the state and on the Eastern Shore, including the 50th anniversary of the Waterfowl Festival and the Fairhill 5-Star. Those are all things that our Office of Outdoor Recreation will continue to focus on as we move forward. We have some future opportunities on the Eastern Shore as well, including a potential trail to connect Snow Hill and the city of Pocomoke. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. And then, not to leave out tourism and our heritage industries, I wanted to let the delegation know that this is the year of Harriet Tubman's 200th birthday. So we will be working with the Maryland Department of Commerce and a lot of nonprofits across the state of Maryland on Harriet Tubman recognition and celebration events throughout the year. So I encourage you to keep an eye on that and attend those events if you can. So quickly, I wanted to introduce Camille Williams, who is my senior advisor and is here with me today. And we also have Bunky Leffman, who is our legislative director. And with your indulgence, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Bunky to tell you about our departmental bills for this session.
Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, it's great to be back home. So I've been coming to delegation meetings, I think now for 8 or 9 years. So it's great to be here. So we have a few delegation or departmental bills. The first was heard in the Senate in EHE, and it was great to see Senator Carrozza there at the hearing. It's a program open space bill. What it does is right now local governments are compelled to submit applications for federal monies. And so we would get rid of that mandate because sometimes the local government doesn't want to submit. The match could be too onerous. There could be several different reasons why they would not want to do that. So we're going to get rid of the mandate. Now, they're obviously still able to submit. We still have a place on the application that notes whether they're getting those kinds of federal funds and everything. We're just trying to get rid of the mandate. And the Park and Rec subcommittee from MACO is in favor of this. Of course, that's led this year by Steve Miller, who's Park and Rec Director of Wicomico County. So they sent a letter of support of this. The next one, which was also heard in EHE this week, is our Tidal Fisheries Advisory Committee. Right now, they serve 2-year terms. There's kind of a companion advisory committee called Sports Fisheries, and each of them there's one person from each board that sits on the other, and they serve 4-year terms. So it makes sense to us to make them both 4-year terms. So that bill just takes TFAC from 2 to 4 years. The next one has not been submitted yet, but we sent to the presiding officers the Great Maryland Outdoors Act, and so hopefully you'll be seeing that soon. That gives us more flexibility to program open space stateside. We're not messing with the local side, but stateside, just so we can have more flexibility on things like maintenance and what we can spend it on, which is really needed. And then the final one, the secretary mentioned this. I was told that Chairman Barbay will be introducing this in the House, but it's Pocomoke Wildlands. So what we would be doing is we want to build a boardwalk along the Pocomoke River shoreline and and what is currently Pocomoke Wildlands designated, but we're not allowed to build in a wildlands designated area. So we're asking to take out 1.99 acres to facilitate that boardwalk to get people there and see, the natural beauty of the area. But then we will be adding back in 81.62 acres to replace the 2 acres. So it's a net gain of a little over 79.5 acres. And wildlands designation has to go through the General Assembly. So any kind of, whether we add or whatever we do with wildlands with changing the borders has to go through the General Assembly. So that's why, this is a bill. Just some information, total length of the boardwalk, some of which is not in the wildlands, is 2.05 miles. And then it's the elevated boardwalk portion is 1.48 miles. The width of the completed trail will be 6 feet, and the width of the wildlands area will have 1 foot of leeway on each side as kind of a protective area. So I didn't know, Secretary, if you wanted to expand or.
No, I think you did a great job of providing an overview, so we'd be happy to answer any questions at the chair's discretion.
It's not always just up to the chairs. There has to be some questions. I do have Delegate Hartman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for the presentations this morning. Have a question with both secretaries. It's a perfect opportunity. The deer crop damage continues to become an issue. I'm sure not just in our district, but throughout the Eastern Shore. And we've talked with several constituents, and just, what more can we do? We talked about having a meeting with our farmers to help educate them. It seems like the policy that's in place is challenging as far as retrieving the deer when there's a full crop in the field in the summer. And, we've had these discussions, but with the two of you here, is there any changes that can bring relief to the farmers?
Sure. Well, thank you, Delegate, for the question. I'll go ahead and start, and then we'll welcome Secretary Bartenfelder's input if he wants to add anything. But in terms of an update, as some of you may know, we have been meeting with several counties across the state to talk about the deer management issue. We have provided a series of recommendations that include both lethal and non-lethal options to address this issue. In terms of the expansion of the deer cooperator permit parameters that you mentioned, we are in the scoping process of a regulatory change for that. Most recently, it went to our Wildlife Advisory Commission for consideration, and will soon be going out for public comment. So if you have farmers in your district that are interested in this issue, please encourage them to take a look at that and weigh in. In terms of the non-lethal options, we have been working with the Department of Agriculture on some potential pilot programs, whether it be vegetative fencing, repellents, or mechanical fencing. So there are opportunities for Maryland farmers to participate in that as well.
I'm happy to, the secretary had to step out for a second, but I'm happy to expand upon that just a little bit. This year, when we announced our sign-up period for our conservation buffer initiative, we announced a few new incentives. So I'm sorry, one of them being financial assistance to install deer fencing along grass buffers. And so that announcement went out January 5th, so just the beginning of this year, and will run until the middle of February. And so we're really hoping that, this opportunity with deer fencing will help our farmers as well.
Okay, thank you for the response. If we could talk offline, we talked about having a meeting with our farmers. It was, December didn't work because they were still trying to get the crops out of the field. We're going to be going into, by the time session ends, they'll be starting to work the fields already and busy again. Is there some time in the very near future that we could schedule a meeting with our farmers. I know Somerset's interested, something we could do, Somerset, Worcester, and Wycomico, the lower shore.
Sure,
Yeah.
we'd be happy to follow up with you on that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Senator Carozza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Secretary Hadaway Riccio and Secretary Bartenfelder, thank you for presenting today. I wanted to thank Bunky Loftman for his work working with us on a couple of bills, the shrimp fishery and the forest bills. And I wanted to bring Madam Secretary to your attention just the continued interest and need for the department to stay engaged on our dredging issues in West Ocean City. You were kind enough, again, you've been down a couple times this past season, the latest back in the fall, to talk specifically with our commercial watermen. Obviously, it affects not only our commercial watermen, our recreational boaters, and tourism and commerce overall, which is an economic driver, not just for Worcester County, but for the entire state. So I would just ask that we are continuing, obviously, to work with Congressman Andy Harris and our other federal representatives with the Army Corps of Engineers to press on that. But obviously having the governor and DNR's leadership at the highest levels engaged really helps us keep that moving. So I didn't know if there was any update on that, Madam Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Carozza. As the senator mentioned, the governor and I both got on a boat and personally visited the site over the summer and spent some time talking with stakeholders, which was really helpful in terms of being able to advocate for this issue. Most recently, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did return to the area to start doing some work. I think one of the issues that we have in West Ocean City, but really in channels throughout the state, is a lack of flexibility at the federal level. So with West Ocean City, the Corps can dredge to 10 feet, but we know that a lot of the ships and boats that are trying to get in need a draw much higher than that. So to the extent that we can all continue to work together to advocate for more flexibility for them at the federal level, I think the better. That said, we did get some good news from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in terms of funding for projects around the state through the infrastructure bill. So places like Slaughter Creek and the Northeast River will receive some funding. There was also some construction money included for Mid-Bay Islands in the supplemental FY 2022 work plan. So we are staying in, I say all that to say, we are staying in constant communication with the Army Corps of Engineers. Colonel Pinchason has been an absolute great partner in this and a true leader in this space. And so we would welcome the opportunity to continue to work with the delegation on these issues.
Okay, thank you. Next, Delegate Jay Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, I know there's been some personnel changes at the top in the department. Can you give us a bit of an overview of some of the new people? Because I know that Bill Anderson left in the past couple months, and just who's in charge of fisheries and who, how the personnel's moved around people, so we understand who's in what positions.
Sure. So Bill Anderson did retire. Matt Fleming is our acting assistant secretary of aquatics. Matt has been with the department for quite some time and was the director of our Chesapeake and Coastal Services unit, which many of you are more familiar with through the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Trust Fund. So Matt is a great addition to the top of the leadership, and we're really excited that he has taken on this new role. Just yesterday, we announced that Mike Louisi will be our acting director of fishing and boating services. So that position has now been filled as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate sample, oh, I'm sorry. Are you done, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay. Delegate sample use.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Secretary. I just wanted to get a little bit more information as it relates to you referenced the forestry industry and the implementation process at this juncture and how that will take place, coupled with I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but the Mel Nolan Woodland Incentive Funds. I didn't know if there are additional funds be allocated to that pot of money would be supportive or helpful for what you're trying to do with the industry at this time. I don't have a whole lot of information, but I'm just trying to understand a little bit more where you were going with the forestry support and implementation.
Sure. So we recognize that in Maryland, we had an issue with both retaining the businesses that we have and also in recruiting new forestry related businesses to come to Maryland. And to address that problem, we embarked on a process to develop an economic adjustment strategy, which is really a series of strategies to improve in a number of areas so that we can retain and recruit more of these businesses. So the partners that were involved worked with our department as well as the Department of Commerce to really engage stakeholders, do a lot of extensive outreach, and eventually develop a final report with some recommendations in it. One thing that we have really been trying to emphasize is that we don't want this to be a report that sits on a shelf. We want it to be a living document that's revisited often, and we really want to see implementation of the recommendations. So now that the EAS is finalized, we are starting to move into the implementation phase of those recommendations. As I mentioned, the Tri-County Councils have been really helpful. Western Maryland RC&D really led the effort. So there are a number of really important partners that are helping to drive that. In terms of the Mel Nolan Woodland Incentive Fund, I don't know the answer to the budget question, but I will get back to you on that. I will also say that through the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Trust Fund, we have funded a number of projects related to forest buffers and tree plantings. That is a really high priority for us. It is very helpful in reducing nutrient pollution in our state and helping us to meet our Chesapeake Bay Agreement goals. So we will continue to put a focus on that through that competitive grant process.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next is Delegate John Mouts.
Thanks, Chairman. Real quick, Secretary, there was comments over the summer about commercial fishing, and it looks like I didn't think we were going to have many bills on it, but it looks like we're going to have some this session. And the comments were to the effect that the commercial industry was dead, and it's time to move on. And Tony O'Donnell used to always talk about the three-legged stool: aquaculture, commercial industry, and science. To the extent that people have made these comments about the commercial industry being dead, can you just to give everybody a quick refresher, the significance of the commercial industry and the role that it plays in oyster recruitment and bay restoration, things like that, just so everybody understands?
Sure, thank you, Delegate. I appreciate the question. And while I don't know for certain, my theory on this is that people may have misunderstood some of the activities and results of the Oyster Advisory Commission. So through the Oyster Advisory Commission, we worked with University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science to develop a model so that any proposed management strategies could be run through the model, and we could determine whether that would benefit oyster populations, benefit the industry, and benefit our overall goals for Maryland, right? And as part of that process, there was a run in the model on ending the fishery, and also a run on the model for status quo. And interestingly enough, what came back is that that would not help us at all, not only from an industry standpoint, but from an ecological standpoint. So the message at the end of the day is that status quo is not enough. we have to keep doing what we're doing, and we need to add some more things to our toolbox. But it was very clear that there is a deep-rooted connection between the ecology and the economy of oysters. So, anecdotally speaking, the industry has been doing well, and the number of NOAA codes where we're seeing overfishing has been reduced. And we want to keep moving in that direction and keep that progress going, because it benefits us in many, many ways. I hope that answers your question, Delia.
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay. Secretary Hadaway, just one quick thing. I want to thank your department. Over the summer, you had graciously sent some folks out to look at some buffer issues we have in Queen Anne's County, and we're looking actively to see if we could do something with Hog Island, and I appreciate all the input from your department. I don't have any other questions for you, but we do appreciate you coming in. We appreciate all the work you're doing over at DNR, and if you have any other comments, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you for the rest of the session.
Thank you. Okay, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but just a quick house cleaning. I failed to do this at the beginning of the meeting. I need to, just before we get in the next session, approve the minutes from the last meeting. If I could get a
So moved.
second.
Second.
Well, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved then. Okay, got to get that out of the way pretty quickly. So next up, we have the Agricultural Law Education Initiative, Sarah Everett, Darren Jarbo, and Jürgen Schwartz. Who would like to start?
Good morning. This is
Good morning.
Sarah. Thank you all for having us. I am going to share my screen if that's okay. We've got a slideshow we wanted to run through with all of you.
I think we're set up for you to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're here today just to give you a little bit of an overview on the Agriculture Law Education Initiative, and we will be sharing presentation duties this morning. So you'll be hearing from me first, and then my colleagues, Dr. Jürgen Schwartz from University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and Dr. Darren Jarbo from University of Maryland College Park. I see a lot of familiar faces and names on the participant list, but in case you are unfamiliar with the Agriculture Law Education Initiative, our organization started back in 2011. The Maryland General Assembly gave a directive to the University of Maryland to help preserve Maryland's farm families. So we do this through legal education. We do this through publications, in-person presentations, lately a lot of virtual presentations, and online outreach. So you're hearing from representatives from 3 different universities because we are a multi-institutional program. So we're made up of folks like myself from the Francis King Carey School of Law at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, the College of Ag and Natural Resources at the University of Maryland College Park, and the School of Agriculture and Natural Sciences at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Our job is to help farmers throughout the state. So we cover the entire state and just about every type of agriculture you could possibly think of. We're going to be giving you some highlights today of some of our impacts, particularly on projects that touch the Eastern Shore. So run you through a couple examples of our educational outreach, talk about our available resources, the teaching that we do, the students that we work with, and how we leverage the funding that we get through the state through a variety of different grant programs. And then we'll have some time for you all to ask us any questions that you may have. Okay, so since 2013, we have given over 270 in-person presentations and webinars. We are very busy. This time of the year is our very busy time because farmers are a little bit less busy than usual. So we have a lot on our plate during these winter months. Our programming has reached over 14,000 farmers, ag service providers, and other stakeholders in the state. And just in the last fiscal year, the materials from our website were downloaded over 13,000 times. So happy to say that a lot of farmers in the state have come to know us and rely on our legal educational resources. One of our sort of hallmark events is the Agricultural and Environmental Law Conference. We do this every November. This year, because of COVID, we did it over the course of 2 days as an online event. We had over 139 folks tune in, and we're really proud of this event. It's grown quite a bit over the years. This year, 97% of folks who attended said that it increased their knowledge of agriculture and environmental law issues. Food safety is one topic that we do quite a bit of education on. We're a part of the Maryland Food Safety Network. We host multiple food safety education trainings every year. We do this in close collaboration with the Department of Agriculture, Extension, food scientists at University of Maryland College Park and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And we are consistent presenters at the Eastern Shore Vegetable Growers Meeting and agronomy days such as Cecil County and the Lower Shore. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Schwartz, to take the next slide.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Jürgen Schwartz from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm the chair of the Department of Agriculture, Food and Resource Sciences, and the Associate Dean for 1890 Research Programs. I've been involved with ALI since its inception. One signature program for the EAS Extension Program is a Small Farm Conference. That annual event attracts approximately 150 small-scale and limited resource and socially disadvantaged farmers. The members from ALI serves on the planning team every year and are frequent presenters at that conference. Next slide, please. Needless to say, the poultry industry is the biggest agriculture industry in our area, and legal specialists provide outreach to that industry on environmental compliance, legal updates, as well as nuisance issues. We also assist growers with annual nutrient management reporting and provide content to the poultry industry and growers on the extension newsletters. Next slide, please. Another big topic for farming families is the succession on the farm. In coordination with the University of Delaware, ALII hosts annual farm succession workshops on the Eastern Shore and throughout the state to assist farmers with keeping the families in the farm in the families. Next slide, please. Nicole Cook, the attorney here at UMES, as part of the ALI team, developed the My Farm, Mastering Farm Risk Management educational program, 11 courses or modules covering all areas of risk management. The instruction is relevant to all farmers, but it's geared for the small and limited resource farmers here in the lower 3 Eastern Shore counties. Next slide, please. Needless to say that our work gets recognized, and we partnered with a lot of institution organizations depicted here on the slide. And we are very thankful for the feedback we are getting, for the support we are getting to help our farmers. Thank you, and I pass it on to Darren.
Good morning, I'm Darren Jarbo. I'm the Assistant Director and Program Leader for Ag and Food Systems Extension at the University of Maryland at College Park. And I've worked with ALEI for about 4 years now, since my arrival in College Park. Some of the ALEI resources that we have available for producers and agribusinesses are 53 publications and 59 videos. Some of the topics include agricultural leasing, community-supported agriculture and farmers market agreements, food safety, solar energy on farms, labor law, and risk management. Next slide, please. We also contact students or work with students. The legal specialists, all 3 teach undergraduate and graduate level courses at our respective institutions. They all also have internships where they have an opportunity to work with students on legal issues. Next slide, please. One of those programs is the Russell Brinsfield Internship Program, which is a collaboration between ALEI and the Hughes Center for Agroecology that's located at the University of Maryland White Research and Education Center. Funding is leveraged from ALEI, the Hughes Center, and Empowering the State. Next slide, please. Maryland Sea Grant is funding an ALEI Policy Fellow And that fellow focuses on issues related to coastal and marine law and the industry. In that, it also includes Maryland shellfish industry, very important to us. Next slide, please. The funding that we receive from the state does get leveraged. In FY21, the legal specialists worked on grant-funded projects that total over $634,000. Some of the projects included Maryland Air's property needs and needs assessment, agricultural education for local government officials, and then an NRCS project to help small and underserved farmers access their conservation programs. Next slide. So thank you, and we'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, I think at this point I have Senator Carrozza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the presentation. And I wanted to ask Dr. Schwartz from UMES. First of all, I want to commend UMES for its leadership role in supporting small farms, and I appreciated that update that he presented. And I guess my question for Dr. Schwartz, and maybe it's something he can take back to the team, is when we have outside groups that are doing reports on the shore and that affect our shore farmers and our poultry growers, is there any way that you could maybe become more involved and make sure they have accurate information and that any of their findings are put in some type of context? We just had a poultry briefing this past week in my committee, and it was clear that some of that information, it probably would have been helpful if there might have been more coordination with the work that you're doing to help small farmers and maybe just putting that information into context. So I just wanted to, I don't know what your working relationship is with some of these groups. I did see that one of your partners was Delmarva Chicken Association, which was glad to see that partnership. But if you could comment a little bit more on that, I think it would put our small farmers on the shore in a better position.
Thank you for that question, Senator. Yes, as I said, the poultry industry is very important to us. We have good collaboration with the Delmarva Chicken Association over many years. And we have a poultry extension specialist who's working closely with her counterparts at College Park as well as Delaware and deliver programming across state lines. We are also engaged in, for example, air quality is an issue that is being discussed. We are involved in a project of monitoring the air quality on the Lower Eastern Shore with respect to ammonia and particulate matter. That is directed by Maryland Department of Environment. From our college, the Department of Natural Sciences, where the chemists are located, they are maintaining the stations and calibrating the equipment and making sure everything is running correctly. It's funded, the whole project funded through the Kemper Foundation. We have been running that for a little over a year and are currently in negotiations to extend it for multiple years more. So we are engaged at various levels with the poultry industry to provide unbiased scientific information. We cannot control what other groups do or say without contacting us. We appreciate any communication we get from everybody. And again, we are putting science and education first in supporting our industry.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz.
Thank you. Next up, we have Delegate Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the presentation. I'd say a lot of this was new to my ear, and I appreciate the fact that there's this kind of support for businesses to make sure they're in compliance, the whole idea of giving them information to use. So thank you for the presentation. Darren, at the end, my question goes to this Maryland Air Property Needs Assessment. Now, I'm just mildly curious if you could to describe what that assessment is. I think where you're headed is, family businesses are multi-generational, and so I'm assuming that there might be some discussion as to how do families move ownership of businesses to the future heirs. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm just kind of curious what that is, and we don't need to spend a lot of time at it, but it's just interesting to me.
Thank you for that question. The needs assessment will be used to determine what type of legal resources are needed by families and farms, so that as they try to solve this issue, we're going at it in the right direction. I'm not directly involved with that project, so I don't know, Sarah, if you want to talk about that.
Sure. So, and I know this is an issue that Senator Eckert's also very interested in. We talked about it this summer with the Brinsfield interns. My colleague, Nicole Cook, with funding from the Campbell Foundation, is heading that project up. And one of the main purposes of that project is to assess the prevalence of farms being lost through common family ownership. So it's colloquially known as heir property cases. And that's when farms get, and it happens with residential properties too. This study specifically focusing on farms, but when properties pass from generation to generation without wills, when there's not estate planning, you end up with numerous tenants in common that are owning these properties, and you can run into property tax issues, issues where one of the numerous owners tries to force a sale in the court. It becomes very messy, and nationwide, a lot of farms have been lost because of this issue. It has unfortunately disproportionately impacted communities of color. And so other states have taken up and passed a uniform law that tries to ease some of these burdens and makes it easier for these family members that own these properties together. And so the point is to, try to do an assessment, figure out where we are in Maryland, how big of a problem this is in our state, and whether or not additional steps need to be taken.
Thank you for that. And maybe I could follow up, or maybe the delegation could follow up. I have a particular interest in that, and thinking of it through the family dynamics that go into these, and the idea that a sustainable agriculture industry depends on having these challenges be met. So thank you for that information.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Next, we have Senator Eckhart.
Thank you very much. And Sarah, Dr. Schwartz, Darren, thank you so much for your effort in coming alongside our farm families and providing so much information, and then trying to bring balance with so much activity that's been going on in the environmental community. I think that's really significant. And we will have a bill. We're trying to get it finalized, the language that will be an alternative to wills, to be able to maintain property in the family, because that's so critical as we lose wealth from that. And that's been a major issue, as you know, with the Rural Council as well. So thank you so much. And we will be bringing more information about that initiative shortly. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're so welcome. At this time, I don't see any other questions. Any other questions from the delegation? Okay, that being said, thank you very much for the presentation. It's informative, and like Delegate Adams said, it's new to some of us, and it's good to get this exposure. But thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think our agenda is calling next for the Maryland Transportation Authority, Will Pines. I don't know if Will is with us right just yet. He's not scheduled to be here till about 10:15, so we might have to wait a minute for him. But I wanted to give you all a little preface on this. A lot of us have been getting a ton of calls and a ton of emails about the EZPass situation. And I think we were very fortunate to try to get them at this late time. We called just yesterday to try to schedule somebody to come in prior to next week's SHA meeting. So I don't think he's out there. Will, you're not out there yet, are you? No. I'll tell you what, if we could do something here, if we could maybe get on with some of the business of our caucus. I think Senator Carrozza had an update on our healthcare issue. Senator?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As a follow-up to last week's delegation meeting, it has been brought to the governor's attention through Secretary Cavey of our delegation's interest in additional representation, specifically on the Maryland Healthcare Commission, but I think on Healthcare and other commissions overall. As Senator Hershey mentioned last week, there are limitations to the governor's appointment authority after the primary. So we have this period of time where if there are openings, appointments can be made. With that said, specifically for the Maryland Healthcare Commission and reminding the delegation members that this came at Coastal Hospice's request to try to have somebody appointed from the shore and also with more of an understanding of hospice issues. The only open position on the Maryland Healthcare Commission at this point is by statute, a Southern Maryland resident appointment. I will share that information with Coastal Hospice in that they may want to work with their counterparts in Southern Maryland to see about having someone that might be sensitive to these issues, as well as talking to Senator Jack Bailey myself. So I just wanted to share that update. Thanking Senator Hershey for letting us all know, not just on this Maryland Healthcare Commission appointment, but across the board, the limitations. So, we might want to be sensitive as a delegation, Mr. Chair, that if we're aware of some openings between now and the primary, that we should weigh in to make sure that we can have Eastern Shore representation considered with the appointments that the governor has remaining between now and the primary.
I think that's a great idea. Still no will, I don't think so. Delegate Jacobs, you had mentioned something about, you had a briefing on EZPass this last week. Can you maybe enlighten us? I don't think Will be here till about 10 after 10, so we got a few minutes to get through.
Well, I had a short briefing. It was more or less, he was introducing himself, as the new acting director of MDTA. We formerly knew him as the finance guy. I think when they used to do the CTP meetings, he was typically there to add any financial assistance to any questions we had during those. So the main purpose of the briefing was really to introduce himself in his new role. He had Anna Dove on and a couple other staff members. We briefly talked about the call center staffing, which has been a real problem. As you know, and the rest of us are getting calls on when people call to try and get assistance. It was up to 400-minute wait, but I think we're down to a mere 90 or 100 now. But the good news was, I guess, that just before this last real rise in Omicron, they were up to 118 call center employees, which, if you remember, in the fall, they were down to like 50, I think. So they were making some progress, but it seems like that they must have cleaned out the closets with old charges and bogus charges and everything else this past week, because we're just getting bombed with constituents with a huge number of problems that it takes a lot of time to get resolved, and I don't think they have staffing enough right now to handle the load. So it's going to be interesting to hear what action they're going to take going forward, because it certainly is something that we're going to be dealing with. This backlog, I think, projected all the way into next summer.
I had a conversation with Acting Director Pines yesterday, trying to give him a little bit of a preview of the types of questions we may ask and we might not ask. He did indicate that there is some confusion out there, and there's some legitimate problems, many legitimate problems. But he said some of the confusion comes with the deferred billing that EZPass went through. I know it's kind of confusing how we run that. I think sometimes even myself, I have a couple EZPasses and I pay the $40 plus whatever that is. And if I don't use the number that I've been given, it becomes an issue for me. And I start thinking I'm getting overbilled or under utilized, if you will. But I asked him if he'd come on and maybe give us a brief explanation of how that EZPass functions to try to help to give some people an understanding of how the whole process works. And then I think they monitor Kent Island happenings, which, you know, a lot of these calls are coming in from the people in our area, in our district, because of the Bay Bridge and the massive usage. So we'll just hang on here till he gets here. I think Delegate Riley, I think you have something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I had a couple meetings with them as well. And I think one of the things that the new reading machines, you know, that we go through are apparently more sensitive than the others that we used to go through before it became, and the location of your actual box, your EZPass box, is very important. Some of us, like mine, I had on, you know, on my dash over in the corner before. It always read it. It was no problem. But these new systems don't always pick it up. So what's happening is when you go through, it doesn't pick it up. So then when they go to bill you, it didn't register on your EZPass. So what they have to do is go back and look through the video. If they have to go through the video, then they're charging you more money than what they would normally charge you if it picked up on the EZPass battery. So it makes a difference. So if you're a lot of people are probably finding out that they're paying more money when they go through things because it's not reading the actual EZPass battery. So then they're getting charged a higher rate, like you don't even have an EZPass. So yeah, so that's one of the issues that we were told during our CPT meeting in Harford County. And also, I think they might have mentioned that in Cecil as well. So.
I think what was interesting too, you mentioned the battery, was that
and some batteries die.
Yeah, they can go bad. And I said, well, that's great. That's okay. People should understand that, but how do you know?
Yeah.
And I guess the only way we're knowing is if we start getting an inflated charge, which is probably unacceptable. So I don't know what his answer will be to something like that. It'll be, I do know that, I mean, I'm getting emails and it's good. I mean, it's good people are calling us and talking to us about it, but sometimes it comes out, they think it's us not doing our jobs, but it's kind of a hard system. And EZPass is, I think EZPass is a third-party vendor. So that's always a little bit difficult for us.
And to let you know ahead of time, if he's not finished by like 10:30, I do have another appointment, so I will have to jump off.
Okay, you will be missed. Okay.
I can stay on.
Okay. Any other comments? We got, like I said, we got about 4 or 5 more minutes to fill here. So if people have some comments and want to preface it, I'd be happy to entertain it. I don't want to have to fill it up with some anecdotal thing that I might come up with, but
you could tell jokes.
I don't have many of those. So.
Chairman, do you know how to sing?
Yeah, there you go.
I can tap dance.
Yeah, I do, but that'll clear the call out. I can tell you that right now.
How about upcoming events? Do we have any upcoming events that we need?
I think, well, the only thing I'd talk about a little bit, if somebody wants to elaborate a little bit more in detail, is about next week are going to be our hearings on the redistricting, which is important to all of us. I think the Senate had hearings on the redistricting this week. Would one of the senators like to give us a brief update on that?
Sure, I was on the, excuse the phone in the background.
Senator, I said brief.
Yes, we had 2 hearings. We had Tuesday, and then it went, we voted. Actually, it was a hearing, and right on the back end of it, there was a vote in an effort to move it along very quickly. And of course, you know, we reiterated our positions consistently, and then it was on the floor yesterday and voted out.
Any other comments?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chair, I'll add to the process in the House. So we did the joint committee meeting that the senator just referenced on Tuesday, and then this coming Tuesday, the 25th, I believe that's the date, the House will have the hearing or have the discussion and then take a vote in the Rules Committee. From there, then we'll move it to the floor for the 26th and 27th to be the date of discussion and debate on the House floor. So that's the status in the House.
I think I have some good news for us. I think Director Pines, Acting Director Pines is here now. Will? Oh, I saw his name there. Still nothing yet. He's showing up on the screen. I just don't have his audio on yet. Well, I lost him. I'll tell you what, I think he's trying to get in again. As we move along on this, let's just try to get into some recognition. Anything from our federal delegation?
I don't have anything to report this week. Just a reminder that we have our webinar this afternoon at 2 o'clock on congressionally directed spending for counties and municipalities. If they want to make a request, we'll just be reviewing our process. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman Aaron's, couple things. Obviously, some issues in DC overhaul of elections bill failed in the Senate this week, so that obviously won't be moving on. The House is approaching the end of appropriations in February, so if you've got any special pet projects or any needs to be sent in, now would be the time to get them in. And just a reminder that the March for Life is today. That is something that Congressman Harris specifically supports, and he would ask that as he might post any social media postings regarding this event, that anyone who is in agreement might share those posts. And that's all I've got.
Okay. I think briefly, Johnny Mouts, I think Delegate Mouts has a brief introduction.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and I believe he's on this call. We've got a new executive director who's joining us this morning. His name's Steve Klein, and he's the executive director for the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. Steve, if you're on this call, could you unmute yourself and just say hello to everybody so we know who you are? Usually we do this in person, and it's been a virtual world, and this would be a great opportunity for you to say hello so people not only know your name, but they get to look at you and talk with you a little bit. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate. Steve Klein, as Delegate said, I'm the new president of the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. Started in the middle of December, so fortunately know where the coffee pot is and things of that nature. I've got a great staff, including Sarah Ramotnik, who's on this call, and she's helping out in Annapolis for the session. So if we can do anything for you in terms of land conservation, natural resources issues, be in touch with us. I come from 20 years on Capitol Hill, working for natural resources issues as a lobbyist. And in full disclosure, I'm also the town council president here in Centerville, Maryland. So that's me. I look forward to meeting y'all. I know a bunch of you. Look forward to getting to know the rest of you. Thanks.
Welcome, Steve. I think Acting Director Pines is here now. Will?
Yes. Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the Eastern Shore Delegation. You want me to get started here?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as the chairman mentioned, I'm Will Pines. I'm the new acting executive director for the Maryland Transportation Authority. And although I've been in the transportation industry for my entire career, I've spent the last 10 years with the MDTA. So I've had the good fortune of meeting a number of you already, but hopefully some of you may recognize my face here at the meeting. So I want to thank the delegation for the opportunity to speak to you and address some of the issues that I know are concerning you. I understand that in the past few weeks, there have been a rise in the number of constituents reaching out to you with issues concerning their tolls. I'm grateful for the opportunity to clarify some of the misunderstandings, acknowledge where MDTA is pursuing solutions, educate about the EZPass program, and hopefully provide you with some important information that allows you to be responsive to your constituents. So for a little background on the MDTA, we celebrated our 50th year, and it was established in 1971 by this body, the Maryland General Assembly. And it was built to finance, construct, operate, preserve, secure, and improve the state's toll facilities. And it's unique from other Maryland transportation agencies in that we're financed solely from our toll revenue. We're a self-sufficient, non-budgeted state agency that receives no money from the state's general transportation fund or the transportation trust fund. The MDTA reinvests its revenue in the operations and maintenance of our toll facilities and the 2 P3 travel plazas that we own. So before I get into greater details, I'd like to point out that our team shared our recent January 6th tolling update, which provides significant details on tolling background and is a useful education tool. We also provided a general tolling presentation with information for your constituents that Jim Port shared, who is now our MDTA board chairman, and he provided that to the House Environment and Transportation Committee back in October of 2021. Okay, so let's get into some of the ways that the pandemic has impacted tolling in Maryland. Beginning in March of 2020, in response to the COVID-19 state of emergency, the MDTA implemented several temporary measures to assist our customers during the pandemic. We initiated statewide all electronic tolling overnight at the 5 remaining MDTA tolling facilities that weren't already all electronic tolling, and charge video tolls at the lower cash rate at facilities that had been accepting cash previously. We established grace periods for the EZPass discount plan expirations and paused the mailings of the notices of toll due, or what we refer to as NOTDs, to provide some financial relief and to protect our customers and employees during the pandemic. The MDTA's decision to pause the mailing of NOTDs aligned with other COVID-19 financial relief programs like deferred rent, mortgage, and also many other types of relief programs that were offered at the height of the pandemic. And certainly at that time, when the program was initiated, I think all of us thought the pandemic would be a short-term thing, but we knew that many of our customers and businesses at that time were facing significant financial strains, and a lot of people were laid off, making it very challenging. So during this time frame between March of 2020 through October 2020, video toll mailings were paused, and as a result, a backlog accrued that we are actively processing and working through resolving. We anticipate the backlog will be cleared by the summer. And layered on top of conducting operations during COVID, we also had our previous tolling system that we had since 2008 and was quite dated. We needed to modernize that, and we updated to new technologies and transitioned to bring new features to our customers through that transition. The new tolling system went live on April 29th of 2021, which again was during the COVID-19 pandemic. As the backlog transactions for Marylanders continue to post again through the summer, the MDTA reminds that these transactions are being metered to customers' accounts to minimize large balances from posting all at once. While we understand that there are some customers that may have opted to pay these deferred tolls in a shorter time frame, it's infeasible to rapidly modify the entire tolling system to handle all of the case-by-case scenarios that would have occurred from our more than 150 million transactions that we average on processing every year. We're also hearing customers' concerns with why their transactions are not posting chronologically and why current transactions are not posting within days. As we work through the backlog, MDTA's metering approach is managing the requests from customers to clear the backlog quickly, with keeping today's transactions as current as possible and metering the tolls to minimize large balances from posting all at once. We are processing chronologically where we can, but in some cases, backlog processing requires coordination with out-of-state agencies and is dependent on when that agency, the home state, posts the tolls. MDTA's metering plan balances the pace of sending backlog and current transactions. During days when more backlog is processed, current transaction processing is slowed to minimize large balances from posting all at one time. This does create a lag in how quickly current transactions are posting, but again, posting more quickly would frustrate the customers who want to slow the rate of how fast tolls are posting. So I hope I've articulated to you that metering and clearing the backlog tolls really truly is a balancing act, and it's complicated by processing the current tolls at the same time. So now for our tolling update, I want to take a moment to highlight some best practices to help kind of on the education piece for both EZPass and video customers, that steps that they can take to ensure that they receive the lowest toll rates. For EZPass customers, we sent out that tolling update, and it provided 4 important specific steps that customers can take to help make sure that they're getting the lowest rates. So number 1 is to maintain an accurate and current listing on all vehicles. This can be an issue, particularly when customers get new vehicles and do not update their license plates on their accounts. Number 2, best practice is keep billing information up to date. And it's particularly important to check for expired credit cards or to link bank accounts directly with an ACH to avoid the expiration concern altogether. 3, customers should maintain a positive balance on their EZPass accounts. This is primarily an issue if an EZPass customer elects not to have auto replenishment and does not replenish their account before incurring tolls. When this happens, the account goes into an invalid status and oftentimes can result in things like lost commuter trips where the account is not technically in an EZPass valid status. And so last but not least, the 4th best practice for EZPass is to make sure that an EZPass is properly mounted, that the transponder is located on the windshield directly below the rear view mirror, and that comes with all the instructions. So the vast majority of our customers are EZPass customers, and they're happily following these best practices and having good results. Unfortunately, when these best practices are not followed, customers may receive image tolls, or what are sometimes referred to as eye tolls, where a transponder is not read, or will incur video tolls. Both these circumstances result in higher tolls and lost trips towards commuter discount plans. Therefore, it's really important for EZPass customers to follow these best practices. Now let's talk about best practices for video customers. While payment by video tolling is a valid payment option, and now with all electronic tolling allows this to occur at highway speeds, we always encourage customers to sign up for either EZPass or pay by plate. Pay by plate is a new option that came out with our new tolling system, and it allows customers to link their license plate to a credit card without having a transponder and without requiring prepayment. EZPass remains the most widely used form of payment at the MDTA toll facilities and at 19 other states, and it is the best option in terms of cost and convenience for customers. And that 19 other states is important because the pay-by-plate option only works within Maryland. EZPass saves drivers up to 77% versus higher rates and additional paperwork that come with video tolls and risk of civil penalty, vehicle registration suspension, and debt collections. Transponders are now free, and there's no monthly fee for Maryland addresses for customers to have an EZPass. So additionally, kind of the next thing in the best practices for video customers, as part of the pandemic relief, video toll customers who sign up for pay-by-plate or EZPass will have any future backlog tolls that have not been posted. They'll have the benefit of those backlog tolls being processed at the image toll rate, which is the same as the pay-by-plate rate, and that will save them money both on their backlog tolls and on new tolls. That again is a pandemic feature a relief measure that wasn't offered previously. Video toll customers, the second best practice for them to follow is to keep their address current with the M.MVA. We use the MVA address on file to send notices to the customer. If they do not update their addresses, then delays in them receiving their tolls are possible. And we certainly, I'm sure you have, and we hear from customers that complain that they didn't receive the notice before they receive a civil penalty, as an example. Oftentimes, one of the reasons for that is that they don't have their addresses updated. And finally, video toll customers, a third best practice is they can take advantage of the opportunity to save 15% or up to $5 by paying their video tolls online before an NOTD is mailed. This is a new feature that, again, wasn't available to customers during the pandemic, but that lets them save money on video tolls if they monitor for those tolls before they post. Now, I want to move into some misunderstandings about overcharges and how that relates to news around the recent audit findings. The MDTA seeks to deliver superior customer service. We process in excess of 150 million paid transactions per year and are proud of our very low error rate. The overall accuracy rate of our system exceeds 99.8%. In an analysis provided by the Office of Legislative Audits covering 4 specific days at two of our facilities, the MDTA ourselves, through our quality program, had identified 5 occurrences where customers had been overcharged out of a total of 230,687 transactions. This reflects an extremely low error rate of 0.00065 to be exact, or 4 zeros. So we're talking about really, really high quality transaction processing. Additionally, the OLA found that no previous findings similar to this in their prior audits, which we had been audited before. In addition, numerous independent auditors conduct frequent audits of nearly every facet of our organization. The MDTA strives for strong financial disclosure practices, as demonstrated in its receipt by the Government Finance Officers Association of an Excellence Award in Financial Reporting Certificate for 8 straight years. Conservative forecasting and good disclosure practices supports credit ratings in the AA category for MDTA, the highest rating category for toll revenue sector issuers. High credit ratings benefit the state by ensuring capital program borrowings are executed in the municipal bond market at the lowest possible financing steps. However, unfortunately, equipment issues can occur on extremely infrequent basis, as evident by our low error rate. And when they do, we do identify them, we fix them, and we work with our customers to make them whole. But again, this is very rare, as evident by our low error rate. More often, when we hear from customers, as I'm sure it's the same with your offices, it is because they believe they've been mischarged. However, once we research their individual situation, we often find it has nothing to do with actual toll system errors. In a recent example, in a media report about a customer that had a problem at the Bay Bridge, the customer complained about not receiving their commuter discounts. We checked this account, and the customer did not have an auto replenishment set up on the account, and their account was regularly going negative. And as I mentioned, discussing the best practices for EZPass customers, it's required for customers to maintain funds on account in order for the account to be considered valid and not lose trips counted towards their commuter plans. These types of customer inquiries and concerns of possible overcharges are not toll system errors, but instead are valid transactions at the rates appropriate for the customer's actual circumstances. We always encourage our customers to check their statements, as we're happy to serve our customers by fully investigating each unique case. These types of issues can be resolved at our in-person customer service centers and at our vendors call center, which I'll address now. Many have voiced their concerns with regard to our call wait times at our call center. With the overnight implementation of all electronic tolling in Maryland due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the major transition to our new tolling system in the spring of 2021, where we resumed the processing of those deferred backlog tolls, our customer service times have obviously been negatively impacted. Unfortunately, we're also not immune to the staffing shortages and retention challenges that are impacting businesses nationwide. All of us have driven by Wendy's and Royal Farms and see $500, $1,000 sign-on bonuses and can recognize that hiring is a challenge right now. When the call center opened in April of 2021, the call center was staffed with 160 service representatives. By August of 2021, the staffing level unexpectedly fell to 60 representatives in that short time frame. Despite consistent hiring efforts and onboarding incentives, staff volumes were remaining inconsistent through the fall of 2021, while the call volumes associated with the backlog tolls continued to increase. Also, the recent spike in the pandemic that occurred here in December and January has resulted in periods with as high as 46% of the staff being quarantined and unavailable to answer calls. For perspective, we now are back up to 157 employees working at our call center with upwards of 120 agents servicing the phones each day. Our average wait times currently in January is 71 minutes, which is a improvement over during December, which was 110 minutes. One of the things that we've also done to help improve those call wait times is we've responded to the quarantining concerns by leveraging remote working and getting all PCI compliant that's needed to be able to do so. Our tolling customer service vendor is continuing to actively recruit, incentivize, and train new staff. The call center is on track to employ additional customer service center representatives with the goal of helping to reduce the wait times and the inquiries response timeliness. So in closing, I hope that this information helps to clarify some of the issues for your constituents and that they've raised. As always, we're happy to assist your constituents in resolving their individual cases. And if you'd like to refer them to us, I encourage you to work with our government relations team. That's Brad Ryan and Anna Dove. Many of you have met them. If not, I'd be happy to schedule meet and greets with anybody who would like that. And many of you already have. So, however, we always encourage, rather than going through elected officials, to the most timely response we're finding right now is often at our in-person service centers or at the MDOT MVA centers where folks can schedule in-person visits by appointment only at MVAs. And while I have your attention, I'd also like to let you know that MDTA is making progress on both the Bay Crossing study, which is expected to finish during this winter period in 2022, and the Bay Bridge automated lane closure system continues to make good progress, as I'm sure many of you have seen, which I know is important to you and your constituents. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have, and I see there's a lot of hands, Chairman.
Well, there's a few hands out there. Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Pines, thank you very much for your comments. Let me just, it was a long presentation and much appreciated, but I want to make sure I understand a couple of things. First of all, what again is a NOTD?
It's a notice of toll due.
Notice of toll due.
So that when a customer has a video toll, if they do not have an EZPass account or a pay-by-plate account, when they travel through our all electronic tolling facilities, we capture a picture of their license plate and mail them the notice of toll due. Those video tolls are at a higher rate than the commuter discounts or EZPass or pay by plate, because the video tolls require us by law to review the images of the license plate, to process the mailings, and to deal with postage and everything, and the wait time on collecting that toll.
Okay, thank you. You said from the period of March 2020 through October 2020, no NOTDs or notices were sent to toll users requesting payment. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so now what you've mentioned is all of these charges have been backlogged and are now starting to come to the customer's billing accounts over the last few months, correct?
Since mid-October of 2020, we had resumed mailings. There was a pause, what we called a blackout period, that we provided notice for back in March of 21, where we again paused during the transition to our new tolling vendor, and mailings resumed again in 2021 after that transition.
Okay, so but you're acknowledging that now customers are getting notices that include this entire backlog of tolls that they have not been charged for since March of 2020?
As I mentioned, we are metering the tolls that we're sending, but we are sending the tolls from 2020 following our metering plan.
And your metering plan is basically just you saying that we'll send you a little bit this month and a little bit the next month and a little bit the following month. Is that what you mean by metering?
That's correct. So as we send current transactions, right, to our customers. So today, if you travel through today and you get a video toll,
right,
we will process a portion of those current transactions along with a portion of the backlog, so that we're keeping customers' accounts as current as we can while not inundating them with both backlog and current transactions at the same time.
Are they specifically identified, which are the current ones and which are the backlogged ones, other than their dates? Are they in different parts of the bill, or they just all included in the number of times that you went over and you have to go back and check the date?
Each individual notice includes the date of the travel.
I don't want to. So if I remember my EZPass, there's a number of line items on the bottom every time I use an EZPass. Is that what you mean by there's a date? So there could be.
That's correct. There's separate line. So I want to separate EZPass from notices of toll due for a second, because notices of toll due are video customers. When a video customer receives an envelope with notice of toll dues in it, let's say they get an envelope and it has 4 tolls in it. Each one of those tolls, it could be 1 current transaction and 3 backlog transactions. Each one of those transactions will have the separate date that transaction had occurred.
Okay, then explain.
Similarly, EZPass, on the statement, it will provide the specific dates when the travel had occurred. And so an EZPass customer will have backlog transactions, especially if they did not have their transponder mounted, at Bay Bridge as an example, right? We no longer have our gantry located on the Western Shore. So we hear all the time, a customer will call and say, well, I held up the transponder where the gantry used to be, or where the plaza used to be, but the gantry's not there anymore. And so when they don't have it mounted, that becomes an image toll. We had to take a picture of their license plate and associate that license plate to the EZPass account. So all paused from March to 2020 through October 2020, any image-based transaction, both EZPass and video, were paused because they're all in that image-based group. We cannot, until we actually separate out the transaction and review the image, we cannot tell if it's an EZPass customer or a video customer.
What is my concern is these backlog of charges that are now appearing on, and let's just keep it to EZPass customers. I think most of who we see on the Eastern Shore, is certainly on a frequency rate are EZPass customers. But now they're starting to see a number of backlogged charges on their EZPass account. And the only way that that's being identified is by the date. And that date could have been something that's almost 2 years ago, correct?
That is correct.
So now they're seeing those dates, but now you're also mentioning that that's not all of them. That MDTA or somebody has decided that, hey, we're going to meter this and we're going to give you a couple this month and a couple next month and a couple the following month. So every time they see a bill, they're seeing their current charges and an additional number of charges that MDTA or somebody has decided that will feed you every month. Is that accurate?
I want to make sure we're clear. So MDTA is using that metering plan because we're being asked to do that by customers and businesses. If we sent all of the transactions at once, which we theoretically could do, every one of those tolls over that period would post at the exact same time and be due at that point. Many of our customers are not capable of paying that and are asking us to meter them slower.
I understand that, but it's also very confusing, I think, for the customers to see that I'm getting a certain amount of charges, old charges, every billing period. And while it might work financially, I can see the confusion that's causing people to say, why am I continuing to see charges from 2020 on my EZPass invoice, right? Because it's a different amount that's being charged or a different number each time. I also am hearing that, what is the way for them actually to verify that? Unfortunately, you've given some examples of, when a transponder works or when it doesn't, but there is a distrust to how tolling is working right now. And that has caused a number of people to say, well, wait a minute, how do I know that I actually went through, or I don't recall something in May of 2020 that I may have done or may not have done, or I'm on a discount plan. And how come this didn't go through the discount plan? Or even further, what happened with the discount plans during that March 2020 to October 2020? Was that still in effect? That if you were an EZPass holder, you had a discount plan, let's just say for the commuter rate at the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, $35, get you 25 trips over 45 days. That's all being taken into consideration as these metered billings are coming back out now?
Yeah, so you asked a lot of questions there, so I'm not sure if I'm going to remember every one of them. So if I miss anything, please help me. But in terms of the commuter plans, let's talk about that for a second. So as I mentioned, we extended the period during the pandemic where we would consider the commuter plans. We made the periods longer. That way, actually more trips are counted rather than less. However, we have seen, during the pandemic, we did have a significant reduction in traffic, right? And so folks who historically would have been able to meet the trips necessary to qualify for the commuter rate were no longer doing that. And so we did give a little bit of relief on that by extending the period, but we cannot treat every EZPass customer as a commuter no matter what. You need to utilize the facility frequently enough to have enough trips to be counted as a commuter, because again, much like video tolling where there's costs with the mailings and all, there's actually inherent savings to the MDTA for us by having commuters, by having a certain rate that's established for them. There's less processing costs if you're a regular user versus somebody who very infrequently uses. And so we can't assume that everybody who signs up for a commuter plan always actually travels enough to do that. And so if through the pandemic, your travels dropped enough where you were teleworking for such an extended period that you only very infrequently went to dinner and used the bridge, then the trips, even though we extended the period, you may still not have generated enough trips to qualify as a commuter. But again, there's also examples like the one that I gave where customers will allege that they should be getting the commuter rate, but their account, the example from the recent media story, that customer's account was negative. So technically their EZPass is invalid, and you're not going to get commuter trips if you're not a valid EZPass.
All right. Well, thank you. I know my colleagues have some questions as well. And obviously, I appreciate you being here right away. This has obviously become something that has grown recently in the last few weeks as customers continue to get bills. And I do want to say we have made some calls to your office on specific individuals that have called our office. And your office has been extremely helpful. And I would just urge those that are paying attention and listening to this as well, too, if they're having problems with their EZPass bills, to certainly call our offices, as we've been able to get to make some progress with your office. So it's appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. I was looking for Senator Gallion, but apparently he left us.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Pines. Just a couple brief questions. What is it when you find out about a problem? How long do you expect the turnaround time to be to fix these constituent issues? Is it a matter of days or within a day? I mean, what are you looking at there?
Could you clarify your question more? Or I think you're asking me how long before we clear this backlog that we had generated through the pandemic, but I'm not sure that's what you were asking.
No, the issue we're dealing with now, especially in my district, we're getting a lot of calls issues there at the Hayden Bridge on Route 40. I've had the mayor reach out different things. So the question was, when you get a complaint, when you hear an issue, a constituent issue, what's normally the turnaround time to get that individual issue fixed?
So many issues, if a customer goes into one of our service centers, or they do wait on the call on the phone to reach an agent and be serviced, most issues are resolved at that point of contact. There are some instances, we have cases like customers that have bankruptcy issues, right? And those get more complicated and have to be coordinated with account specialists and our central collections unit. And those can take a while. So I'm not sure if I answered your question correctly.
That's good. One other question. When there's issues brought with accounts, if there is an error that you find out about, do you email those users or do you contact them somehow? Because what we find when there are issues on statements, a lot of folks, and I'm guilty of this, it draws out my credit card automatically, and I'm not good at checking my account to see if there's an issue. So if there is an issue, do you email those folks or do you call them, or what's the process there?
That depends. If the customer directly interacted with us or made us aware of the issue themselves, like we didn't, for some reason, it was such an infrequent issue that we just didn't see it. What we do first, let me take a stab at making it clear what we do as a quality program to identify system errors. Okay, because I do want to make sure we're clear that I don't want anybody to walk away here thinking that the majority of the issues, or even a large fraction of the issues, are system errors, because we use statistical sampling of our transactions to identify how many errors are occurring. Now, like any quality process, you don't sample every single transaction. You use a statistical sample size. That is what gives us great confidence from our quality checking that our system is in good shape, and we have very, very low error rates. That I mentioned, the audit finding, OLA's finding, was actually 0.000065 was our error rate. So system errors are very, very infrequent. But if a customer calls us and they happen to have some kind of problem, every once in a while there's a license plate, and instead of reading a B, the system reads it as an 8. Very infrequent, but it happens occasionally. When it does, if they call us, we make them whole. We adjust the toll to the correct customer, removing it from the customer's account who was in error in that specific example. If we find like a lane issue where, let's say, a truck drove into a piece of equipment and damaged it, we will identify that time period, and every single transaction that was negatively impacted by that event, we would credit all of those customers from the event. And we typically don't follow up with the customers. We just take care of it in a mass correction for an issue, a force majeure type event like that would occur.
So in other words, you correct the account, and you don't send an email or a phone call to let them know there was an issue. You just go ahead and just take care of it on the account, in other words.
If it's an issue like that, where like piece of equipment would get hit by a truck or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up we have Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Pines, for your presentation. So my question is, how soon should we expect to see EZPass billing to be back to normal within 2 or 3 days? It sounds like you're intentionally, if I understand correctly, you're intentionally delaying current billing because of your adding in the old. So when you have people with needing those receipts for expense accounts and things like that, business travelers, or even for our sake coming here, it creates a problem.
So I think you had a 2-part question there. I'll try to answer it. So when will we be finished with this, right? We're saying summer 2022, we will be through posting the backlog to accounts. So that will take care of EZPass customers. For Marylanders, it might be a hair sooner, but we have a mix of out-of-state, and out-of-state customers have a lot of rules that we have to follow. There's a lot of different tolling agencies throughout the country, different DMV rules. So when we send their transactions, we have to work with them following their business rules. So in terms of the metering, and just restating that again. So exactly as you said, we are currently sending both the older backlog and current transactions. And some days we may send a little bit more backlog. Some days we may send a little bit more current. And that is allowing us, we have to do that in order to clear the backlog and move it out of the system. We've got to send both. And when we send more backlog, we don't want to inundate customers' accounts with charges all at once. So we do slow the current transactions.
Okay, if the placement of the EZPass reader is very important, as you change vehicles, the little Velcro strips kind of get lost with your old vehicle. Can you supply dealerships with those? I think it would be a service to the dealership and to the customers. And I'm also going to ask you how many other people here would like to see some mailed to the Eastern Shore delegation office, especially now that we're in session and coming back and forth, so that there's a place where they're available to us. I know I would certainly be appreciative of that. And maybe the dealerships or something is a way to make it easier for our customers.
So we are working with Tag and Title, and have had some conversations with the dealership associations on starting those kinds of activities. One of the challenges is we have had some supply chain issues, like many businesses, with having enough transponders and supplies available to guarantee that, every Giant store, every MVA, every MDTA facility, dealerships, all of that can have that really high stock of supplies that may not get used all at once. So we're trying to work through the supply chain and the inventory issues to figure out where to prioritize putting them. But I absolutely will talk to our government relations team about being able to share some mounting strips with, any elected official who would like some to be able to share with constituents.
Well, I would certainly appreciate some being sent. So thank you.
All right, I think, I know a lot of us have a meeting coming up at 11. I think we have one more question. That's Delegate Kevin Hornberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, having my district right there at the Hayden Bridge and 95, I'm getting a massive influx of complaints. What I'm hearing from this presentation is that it's twofold. One is you have switched to a new technology to read the transponder. And as a result, folks that may have not had their thing perfectly mounted in their window where they should are getting a video toll fine. Is that an accurate statement?
So that seems to imply that there was a difference in the equipment reading, that is the core issue.
And that's exactly where I'm going with this.
Yeah, no, I want to be clear that having transponders mounted has always been an issue. We've always had a percentage of our EZPass customers.
Right, but we've never had an influx. We've never had an influx this large. There's a direct corollary between the change out of the technology that you're utilizing and the way that it reads the transponder. And I don't think that blaming the victim is the right stature to take here. Okay, you've changed technology. That's great. It expedites traffic. We can move quicker. But you haven't notified your customer base that change in technology that you implemented has a lower read rate or a lower accuracy rate, and that they need to have that thing mounted perfectly. I've got folks that have been using EZPass since inception, 20 years, that are now getting popped as an 18-wheeler. There's no explanation for an algorithm or a process that charges a 20-year customer of EZPass as an 18-wheeler. There just isn't. So, I mean, if you can explain to me how somebody who's had an account since inception is now getting billed as an 18-wheeler and that's their fault, I would love to hear an explanation of that.
I obviously don't know the circumstances of that account, so I'd have to look into that to be able to respond. But let me be clear
one of the
that
people on this call is getting billed as an 18-wheeler, one of the delegates. I have other constituents who are getting the same thing. I think it would behoove you to notify your customer base that there's a change in process and that it could elect additional fines. No one is purposely raising their EZPass tolls and saying, I want to pay more tolls. You know what I mean? I'm loosey-goosey here and I love paying tolls. I want to pay more of them. No one's doing that. And I'm getting calls and emails every single day. Okay. And I'm sick of it. So I respect that this is your position and you've got to be the bearer of bad news here, but this is crazy. EZPass is supposed to make our lives easier. Okay. And this is just another tech debacle that we have to take on our shoulders. So it makes me very upset. I'm not expecting an answer here, but we've got to stop blaming the victim. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
if I could, I'd like an opportunity to respond because I think there were a couple of things stated there about the accuracy of the system going to the new vendor. I want to be clear that we began processing backlog, as I mentioned before, back in October of 2020. You can go back and check the record from our press releases. Prior to our transition to our new tolling vendor, we were getting calls and had high wait times back in February and March of 2021. So the core problem is not that the technology has somehow made things less accurate. As I mentioned, we test that regularly and we know what our error rates are. The core problem happened from
you guys also issued a speeding ticket to every single person who went across the Hayden Bridge when you first rolled out the technology. So it's part technology, part algorithm, no part customer service. If I am a constituent and I get a letter from the government saying that I've done something wrong, I need to pay money, and oh, by the way, I'm going to revoke your registration and your ability to have a license, and I've changed no behavior whatsoever. I've done nothing different than what I've been doing the last 20 years. As a citizen, is that a benefit to me? It's not. So you guys are undergoing a lot of change. Change is good, but the way that you're rolling out and blaming the victim and finding the victim and then threatening to take away their license is just wrong. It's just wrong. So stop blaming them and get it fixed. Okay? That's it. I don't want to hear any more excuses.
I think he's trying to give you an answer. Go ahead, Will, if you don't mind, finish up. And I appreciate it, Kevin. I think these things.
No, I would like to thank everybody for their time. As I mentioned, we do hope that customers follow the best practices that will position them in the best case for all of their tolls. That was the key message that we had hoped to give to have takeaways today. And like we said, if you do have a constituent, I'd be happy to look into any of these cases that any of the delegates had previously mentioned, and look forward to working with you and hope everybody has a happy and healthy session.
Well, Will, I appreciate you coming on board on such short notice. And I do know there are some major issues and there's some anomalies out there. And I do appreciate Delegate Hornberger's comment. It does seem like we're all running through this. And I think it's important that we really get together right now and try to fix this thing and make the people available. And you all have been doing that with Anna and the like. And I think that's important to us. I guess the last thing I would like to know is, when we do submit a request to you all, what is the expected time of callback to those people that are calling us and giving the issues that they're running into? Is it a day, 2 days, 3 days? I know it can be variable, but what should we expect to tell our constituents?
So that sort of depends as well. Candidly, if everyone was to send all of their requests directly to us, we manage those outside of our call center, and frankly, that's just going to inundate the other representatives that we have. So we do ask that customers try our service center first and our call center first, but we do try to have quick turnaround for being responsive to your constituents when you send them.
We'll finish up on this, but it is kind of interesting. There was just something I noted in here. Somebody said they've been on. Since this presentation started, they started at 187. Now they're 136 in the queue. So we realize we have some issues, and I think you're attempting to address them. We just need to get on it, and I think further discussions will come. But I do appreciate you taking the time on such short notice. Appreciate all you did. Okay. Any other comments or questions for the good of the order? That being said, we extended this meeting. I do appreciate everybody's time and everybody's patience. If you have calls or questions or comments, let's get together and maybe set up another one of these meetings so we can resolve some of these issues.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you very much.
Aye.